Hey, gang, it's Dave. Welcome back to the podcast. And before I get started, I want to dedicate this episode to a good friend of mine who I was hoping to see earlier this year at an event I'm going to talk about called Tac Con. But unfortunately, he passed away. But I want to make this episode dedicated to Mike Warsaki. Learned a lot from him. He was a great guy, good friend. And unfortunately, he just had to, got a little something he had to deal with, and he didn't win this fight. So, Mike, this is for you. So, gang, I just came back a couple weeks ago from an event. It's become one of the biggest meetings of trainers and students, and it was started by a guy named Tom Givens. I'm sure some of you have heard of him. He runs a company called Rangemaster, and I've taken a few courses from him. Consider him a colleague, although he's been doing this probably twice as long as I have. He and I, every time we run into each other, he still remembers, that I have to escape New York. He always asks me, when are you going to leave that hellhole? But so Tom started this a long time ago. I think it was about a request from a bunch of people who just wanted to get together. And they wanted to be able to have small seminars or teaching seminars where they could share different tidbits and different training tips, and then learn from each other and kind of help all the instructors and all the people evolve. And it was a good thing. It's been going on quite some time. So he and his wife, Lynn, wonderful lady. I love running into her. She's always just so approachable. Tom is the Southern gentleman. He's always very welcoming, always a great host. But I think a lot of the work has fallen on a couple of his right-hand people, like Tiffany Johnson and Akil Kadar. And I'll tell you, they're great people. Akil, you and I got to get on the range soon. We do it. And then they've got this wonderful volunteer team that helps this thing run. I think it's like probably 50 or 60 people, I swear. Maybe it's 20. I don't know. But everybody this thing runs. All the bugs seem to have been worked out of it. It's great. Tac Con is a really good event to go to learn some short snippets and to see if you can evolve and you can change and you can get better. It was hosted this year, and the past couple of years that I've gone, this will be my third year in a row, and it's hosted at the Dallas Pistol Club right there just north of Dallas, Texas. Great facility. It's kind of squeezed right into this corner of a couple expressways, and it's near a soccer field and a sports complex, but guys, remember, it's Texas. They're pretty gun friendly down there. That club is laid out pretty well. They've done a lot of good work on the infrastructure, and I'll tell you, going there, I just love looking around and seeing what else they did. This year, they put in some giant steel columns, and they've got these shade sails over a couple of the bays because they're always in sun. And I'll tell you, that made it a lot more pleasant. It was really good. So the cool thing about going there is, being in the industry, in the training industry, so you can't be an island. You can't be just, I'm going to do my thing over here and I'm not going to interact with these other people because I'm going to do my thing. You're not going to last long if you do that. You got to get out there and you got to interact with other colleagues and friends that you make in the industry. And Lord knows I've made a bunch of them. It's good to catch up with these guys because we all don't get to train with each other as much as we'd want to. Like, I'll give you some examples. A friend of mine, Scotty Cronin, and his training group. Tim Kelly and his Apache Solutions tribe. A very good friend of mine, Anna, and most people know her by Uzi from her Facebook page. But her and my wife and I have become really good friends. Oh my God, she's a powerhouse. I don't know how she does it all. And of course, ran into a longtime friend, mentor, John Holschen. He and his wife, Martha, were there. Another buddy of mine, Don Reddle, was there. There's some big guys. You see a lot of people. Met some new people. Took some classes from some of them. Took a couple classes from one or two people that I've been friends with for a while. And I finally said, you know what? Let me see what he's got. I'll go into those in a little bit. But one of the things I'm going to encourage you, if you haven't been, you should try to go. These gathering events, are just the value you can take away from them is just outstanding. So, I'll cover the classes I did in the next segment here, but I'm just telling you, this Tac Con thing, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's just a lot of people, all of the idea that they can learn, they can get better, they can do more, and they can share. And it's probably one of the safest experiences you can have, believe it or not. So, hang on. I'm going to tell you what classes I did, and I'm going to give a little snippet of each. Okay, so while I was at Tac Con, I attended a bunch of courses. Like I said earlier, some of them are friends of mine, colleagues of mine that I've known. We've interacted on social media. We've seen each other in classes in different places, but I've never really had the chance to take one from them. So there's one individual I've taken a couple classes. I did an urban rifle with him. I did a pistol class with him. And, I think this is a guy that if you can get a chance to get a class with him, get one done soon. I don't know. Unfortunately, some of these trainers are getting up there in age. Some of these, these plank owners, the originators of our modern craft. And one of them I'm talking about is John Farnham. He's been around a long time. He's gathered a lot of information. He has a lot to share. And I think one of the phrases I heard from him is, I don't have the time to share all of my knowledge that I've gained, but I'm trying to do it. And he had a section called Instructional Development for Our Art. So he's talking about the art of instructing for firearms. And a lot of it was, he was just sharing some of his knowledge, some of his observations. He didn't have a curriculum. It was just John Farnham sharing some of his wisdom and things he's gathered along the way. It was good to hear from him. He has some really interesting things to say, and he's got some interesting observations of how our craft and how our industry has evolved. So, like I said, if you can get a chance to take a class with him, I love running into him. All these guys, when I ran into him, I tried to get pictures, with them because, I just think he's a notable person. He's been in this game for a long time, just like Tom Givens. And these are guys we can learn from. They have some solid foundations in this industry. Another class I took was a gentleman named Jeff Gonzalez from Trident Concepts. Really, really cool dude. The good thing about him is he's very down to earth. A lot of times you're going to get these name instructors and you think they've got this big ego and this great following, and they're going to be like, oh, they're untouchable. You can't go over and talk to them. This guy, oh my God, I walked up there and I hadn't signed up for his session, but the one session I did, because of an illness, one of my other buddies, Lane Thayer, he got sick, so he couldn't make it. So his sessions got changed, and what they changed it to was interesting, but it wasn't what I was interested in. So I kind of wandered over. My wife, Wendy, decided she was going to do this one, and it was strong hand only EDC. So it's basically just working with your gun hand only. And I thought, you know what? I do a lot of one-handed work. Let me see what Jeff's got to offer. Let me see if I can pick something up or even just make what I do better. So I kind of stood by. I went on the standby list, and sure enough, there were a couple no-shows, as there always are. And Jeff's range officer said, yeah, come on up, get your gear. So I went in there and shot. And it was very interesting because he didn't make it complicated. He just made sense. Not going to go into all the drills he did, but I'll tell you, like I said, I do a lot of one-handed work. And coming away from that course, I gained a couple things. It was really interesting to watch, and it was a one-handed shooting course. It wasn't like one-handed gun operation. You could still reload two hands. You could still put the gun away and get the gun out using both hands. But it was just one-hand shooting. And he talked about some of the physics behind it, some of the idea behind it, obviously the reasoning, why you would only be shooting with one hand when you have two hands available. But it was very good. It was very good. Got to talk to him for a few seconds afterwards, but because he was moving on to another session. But Really, really cool guy. There was my wife actually did another session with him later, and it was kind of like an increased heart rate, accelerated heart rate segment where he had them use a kettlebell and they did a bunch of kettlebell swings to get up into that maybe 75 to 80% heart rate zone. And then he had them shoot. But before he did that, he had them shoot a drill to get a baseline. So it was draw, fire a bunch of rounds, and he did it like a few times. I think it was about 7 or 10 times. And he got that data. And then after he got your heart rate up, he did the same thing and then took that data. And he could tell whether you got better, whether you got more efficient, if you fell apart a little bit, or if you totally just tanked. It all depended on how much in shape you were. And I'll tell you, in her class that I watched, there was, I think it was 8 people total. And there were some age ranges, late 20s all the way up to probably in their 60s. And there were some pretty in shape people there, and they did well. They did well. I give them credit for this. And this is something that, we don't do as often as we should. We just kind of practice on a nice static range or a little bit of exertion, but not much. But, think about it. Can you get your heart rate up into that 80% range and perform? Something to think, something to try and discover. Another class I took, and I met this instructor a couple years ago, watched what she was doing. Couldn't get into the class because it was pretty popular. And then last year at another event, ran into her and we got kind of talking. And I decided if she was going to be at Tac Con this year, I was going to take one of her classes. And when I saw that the class was there, I threw my name on that as I think it was like my first 2 choices was her sessions. And it was Ann Hamblin of Luca Tactical. And she did something called Tactical Response to Active Shooters. And it's kind of interesting because I've thought about putting this class together. And from now on, I got to start thinking about this. Is if I have a thought, I should just put a class together and run the darn thing because somebody else is probably going to do it. But what she did is she took 3 active shooter events and she looked at the actual response of the defenders, whether it was law enforcement or civilian, and how they stopped it, how they stopped the shooting. So, one of them was it was a bicycle cop, and it was an active shooter at a facility, and he took a shot. I think they figured the shot was about 70 yards. I don't remember the exact incident, but I could look it up, and we can put it down in the comments. But it was very interesting because this guy had just pedaled his ass off to get to where he was. The guy had a rifle. He was actively killing somebody right there when he pedaled up. He stopped. I believe it was he took cover where he was. I don't remember, but he took a couple shots and he stopped the fight. He stopped this guy. So was there luck? Was there skill? Doesn't matter. It worked. That's all that matters. And so what we did is we decided how far out can we hit a target. So we had steel plates, probably, I think the ones that we were all partnered up with a couple of people. So the guy I was partnered up with was a pretty good shot. And we had, I think the plate we were on was an 8-inch plate. And we started at, I think, 15 or 20 yards. And then if everybody got a hit on your team, everybody got to move back. And I think we got back to about 35 or 40 yards. And then people started missing. I shanked one. I took the hit on that one. I just missed for some reason. And then my partner went and he missed. So we owned it. But it was pretty good. It was pretty good. It was just basically, it's like, how far away can you guarantee a hit? She had a couple other ones where we did there were some moving targets. She had a couple swinging targets that did this with some steel plates. So you had to hit the steel plate, but not the moving paper target. And that was pretty challenging, especially when you had 2 of them moving instead of one bobbing back and forth. So it was kind of a confidence building session, but it was good to see her thought process behind it. Because like I said, I'd been thinking about doing one, and this gave me some more info and some more ideas on how to really do it well. So, Luann, good job. It was a lot of fun to train with you. Great to run into you afterwards, and I'll see you at the next event here in a couple of weeks. Another one I took was from a colleague of mine. He and I connect on social media quite a bit. And he's got his own training place over in Bandera, Texas area. That's Tim Reedy. And his niche, or his, I guess you could say, people would call it a hook or persona, but I think this is Tim. He wears a kilt everywhere he goes. Whatever he does, he's wearing a kilt. He told me, I think he said he hasn't worn pants in like 10 years or 12 years or something like that. And Glade lives in Texas. I don't think he would do it in New York in the winter, but you never know. So his take on things was, or his class was called Kilt in the Streets. So he changed the name a little bit. And basically what it worked out to be was an introduction to IDPA and USPSA shooting and how the correlation can happen. He actually talked about where the blend of the two, so real life skills and the competition, where they can actually work together. It was pretty interesting. I've kind of known it, but it was good to see it presented his way. He's a very accomplished shooter in IDPA and I believe USPSA, and his training partner, who is also presenting, is he's either a master class shooter or a grandmaster in one of them. So when these guys are sharing info, everybody, you probably want to listen because they've figured things out. It takes a lot of work to get to that level. Okay. But it was good. It was good to see people's responses, good to listen to Tim's thoughts on the transfer of knowledge and skill between the street and competition. So it's something that, I would encourage people to do. It's not only is it just more fun, it's another excuse for trigger time, but if you really boil it down to it, it's problem solving. It's how you win the game. You solve the problem faster. So it's strategy, it's tactics, it's, planning your game so that you can win. But in the end, what does it teach you to do? It teaches you, you've been there and done it. You can solve this problem. You did far worse on the range, and now you've got a solo or two attackers. You can fix this. Okay. So it was good. Like I said, I don't think there weren't really any bad segments there. The good thing about Tom is when he selects people to present, he gets good people. Another one I did, and actually I watched this one because it was full. Good friend of mine, a fellow handgun combatives instructor. He was anointed by Dave Spalding due to his dedication to the craft, and he'd been in way more classes than most people think from Dave. And he's also one of Tom Givens' guys too. So he lives in both of those worlds. So his was called Drills More Relevant Than the Bill Drill. And his premise was, I'll back up. The bill drill, if you don't know what it is, basically it's you do it whatever distance. Some people say 5 yards, some people say 7, some people will do it at 10. Okay, but if I typically will do it about at 7 yards. I'll say, okay, we're going to do this. It's draw and fire 6 rounds on a target, typically 8-inch chest, high chest center, or an 8-inch bullseye or something, but a target. And you want to do it as fast as you can. Okay, but you got to get all the hits. So whatever target it is you want to hit. I've practiced on 3x5 labels. I've practiced on Post-it notes that are 3 inches or so square. It's however you want to challenge yourself. Okay, but so the drill is basically you're drawing and firing 6 rounds. So his premise was, what if we can do something different with those 6 rounds? And I took some notes, and it was kind of interesting because he came up with, I think it was about 8 or 10 options that you could do in 6 rounds. And it wasn't all 6. It was, one of them was 2 to the body, 1 to the head. One of them was, there's the fast drill where you shoot 2 rounds in a smaller aiming circle, and then you do a reload and you shoot 4 rounds in a bigger aiming circle. So there's all sorts of variations. It was kind of cool because it was, let's get outside the box of what we're doing. And let's think, can we apply a different skill, or can we take this drill and proof test and learn in a different way in just 6 simple rounds? So it was pretty good. Couple of classes that my wife did, she went along. She's one hell of a shot, trust me. was, again, Jeff Gonzalez's course. She also took a class from Tatiana Whitlock, and it was about taking a seat. And it was basically shooting from a seated position, which how often do we think about doing it on the range? Or do we think about it when we're out to dinner? But it was starting from a different position. And, I guess you could say the hurdles you'll have to face when you're in that position. There's a table in the way, and you're not going to be able to do your normal draw stroke. You're not going to be able to get the gun up. It's got to come up higher, or you've got to clear yourself from that chair. I watched her talk about how you sit in the chair. You see people that'll sit, tuck their legs under them, and then wrap their ankles around the legs of the chair. Or they'll sit wide, or they'll sit with their legs in front of them and crossed. So she talked about the different advantages and disadvantages of each and how you should think about how you're sitting. So, again, I could go on. I observed a couple lectures. One of them was basically just running the range, some ideas on, how to operate your range. There was one of them I missed. I was going to get into it, but I couldn't. It was Don Rutto was doing a what failures can happen during force-on-force training. I wanted to kind of see that. Since we do training with simunitions and UTM now, we've been doing it for years, but we're going to be stepping that up. And trust me, that's about as close you're going to get into a real-life gunfight without getting into a real-life gunfight. And if you haven't tried it, you should. Force-on-force training with simunitions or UTM or even airsoft is valuable, but you've got to do it safely. And there's a lot of protocol that goes into doing it safely. Just don't get a couple airsoft guns and go out in the backyard with a couple buddies of yours and hope to see what happens, because if you don't do it right, somebody can get hurt. All right. Even by an airsoft, they'll take an eye out easily. All right. So, and then, there was, let's see, what were the other ones? There was a tactical medical one, talking about, response to injuries. It was given by an actually ER trauma surgeon who teaches law enforcement on this topic. So, it was pretty good. One of the ones I did miss this year, I try to get, is Tom Givens himself does actually present at these events. And he usually talks about situational awareness or training doctrine and mindset. But I was elsewhere when he was giving his presentation, so I missed him this year. But I did, Wendy and I did run into them. We managed to get a photo with them. I managed to talk to Tom for a little bit, but as you can imagine, he's the guy that runs everything. Well, he doesn't run everything. He's got the right people in place to run everything, but he's got to be moving around a little bit. And I guess you could say the clincher for the whole event was, there's a pistol match they do during the event. So you get an assigned shooting time, and it's on turning targets, it's drawing and firing, and there's no reloads. It's just fire 5, fire 6, fire 2 here, 1 here, 5 here, whatever. And then they judge you on accuracy. And then they call it a tiebreaker. The tiebreaker is you're at either 5 or 7 yards, and you draw and fire 5 rounds into the circle in the head of one of Tom's targets, which the circle's probably about maybe 3 inches in diameter. And they time you on how fast you did those 5 rounds, as long as you got them all in the circle. That's your tiebreaker. I think my time was like 1.6 or something. For some reason, I got up on target. My dot was there, and my brain was screaming, "Why are you not pressing the trigger?" And then I got to pressing the trigger. That's what it felt like to me. There was one guy, I believe he did it in like 1.18 or something. It was, I don't know how this guy, he's an alien. But what happens is everybody gets ranked. They take a segment of the top shooters and the guys, and they take a segment of the top shooters of the women, and then they have a shoot-off. So it's a single elimination shoot-off. And so he drills them down, and it's reactive targets. So there's 3 drop-down targets and a plate at the end. And the way they set the plates is there's no way you can get a tie unless both of them hit at the same time, the plates touch and stop. So one will fall over the other, and then the first one down is the one who obviously hit him first. So I like how they've set it up. And I'll tell you, there were some phenomenal shooters at this shoot off. It was crazy. The guy that won it was unbelievably fast. I think he was the guy who got the 1.1 something shot time on the tiebreaker. But this guy, I tell you, you can tell he's practiced. You can tell he's confident. You can tell he knows his gun, because I swear he was probably sub 1 second out of the holster on the first target, and he was done before the other guy got to his second or third target. This guy just destroyed this course. And I tell you, I give this guy a lot of credit. He won the match, and I tell you, he was happy. So all in all, what I'd like to tell you is, if there's a chance you can get to an event like this, especially Tac Con or something, some other event, get to it. Again, the knowledge and the sharing is the value of it. Yes, it's a trip to Texas. It's packing and planning and deciding what you want to do, but it is worth the trip. It is worth it. So I would go there, suck up as much as you can. The first year I went 2 years ago, I was seeing some of the chatter, and they said, don't shoot your first year. You know what? Plan on shooting your first year. I would have done it. I actually regretted not shooting any classes. I just, the first year I did all lectures, but I watched a few live fire courses, and I regret watching them. I should have shot them. So I'm going to tell you, from my perspective, plan on shooting at least 1 or 2 live fire courses, and bring enough ammo in case you do well on the pistol match, because you might need it. But get to it. If you have any questions, message us below. Hit us up. We'll answer them. We're pretty good on that. And then keep an eye on the Tac Con website. And if you see that open up, get on it. What we'll do is we'll also post a link to the dates for next year, and we'll post some information about Rangemaster, and I will share info about all of the classes I took and the people I ran into. So there's going to be a lot of info in the comments section. Okay. Other than that, guys, thanks for checking in. Thanks for coming by. Don't forget to like this video, and go check out our other ones and like those too. Subscribe to the channel. Help us out. The more people subscribe, the more we can put out there. And don't forget, share this thing out too. All right. Don't forget to support us on Patreon as well. We'll see you soon.